So, what's in store for Europe's economy come 2026? Well, Morgan Stanley put together a massive forecast, and we're going to break it down. The real question here is what major forces are going to shape the continent's future? Okay, let's dive in.
Right out of the gate, the report hits us with a pretty dramatic line. Hold on to your hats. Big dreams and mixed themes. And that tells you everything you need to know. We're not looking at some simple, straight line. Nope. We should be bracing for a complex, kind of volatile year, packed with both huge challenges and, you guessed it, big opportunities.
And when you look at the key themes swirling around 2026, a few words just pop right off the page. Growth, AI, China, and data center. You can bet these are the heavy hitters, the big engines driving the most important questions for the year ahead.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the big picture complexity of the continent. Then we're going to drill down into three key forces: the real impact of AI, the ever-growing China factor, and how Europe's old-school economies are being forced to learn new tricks.
You know, the report points out a record 34 big debates happening across 25 different sectors. What that really means is there's no single story for Europe. The continent's actual strength, its secret sauce, is what the report calls idiosyncratic alpha. Basically, it's all about the unique, specific opportunities you'll only find at the individual company level, stuff you just can't see from 30,000 feet.
So, let's get into our first major force, artificial intelligence. I mean, it's the topic on everyone's mind, right? For Europe, the question is really fundamental. Is AI going to be this disruptive threat that leaves the continent in the dust? Or is it a massive opportunity to actually jump ahead?
We often hear about the US and China as the great AI producers, the ones building the foundational tech. But what if that's not Europe's game to play? What if its real strength isn't in making AI, but in adopting it and applying it on an absolutely massive scale?
And you know what? The numbers totally back this up. In the US, just 41% of companies are seen as AI adopters. But in Europe, that number skyrockets to a whopping 68%. The report argues this isn't a sign of weakness at all, but a really smart, strategic position to be in.
So you have to ask why. Why is Europe such a perfect place for AI adoption? Well, it's actually a direct answer to some of its biggest headaches. You've got an aging population, productivity growth that's been kind of sluggish, and labor markets that aren't super flexible. All of that creates a huge incentive to bring in AI to get more efficient and basically substitute labor with new tech.
Okay, on to our second major force, China. Its role on the world stage is really changing. It's not just a competitor anymore, it's a global heavyweight, and its domestic policies are now creating these massive ripple effects all over the world, especially for Europe.
I mean, just look at this. These maps show the unbelievably fast global expansion of Chinese auto parts suppliers and car makers. They're not just shipping things out anymore. They are literally setting up shop right in Europe's backyard, in places like Poland, Hungary, and Serbia.
And they are not messing around. They have a number in their sights, a $240 billion opportunity. The goal is to grab 10% of the entire overseas market by 2030. You can imagine the kind of intense pressure that puts on Europe's legacy auto industry.
And at the very same time, China's pushing this new policy they call anti-involution. Now, it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. They're shutting down older, less efficient factories to get oversupply under control in key industries, like chemicals. For European companies, this could totally shake up global supply chains and pricing.
All right, now for our third big theme. Because the story of Europe in 2026 isn't just about flashy tech and global competition. It's also about how the continent's most traditional, foundational industries are being forced to adapt to a whole new world.
And we're going to look at two totally different examples to see how this plays out. First, banking, a classic service industry. And second, cement, a heavy, carbon-intensive industry. Both are feeling the heat to modernize, but for completely different reasons.
In the world of banking, this is the magic number. European banks are pushing hard, and I mean hard, to get their cost-to-income ratio below 50%. This is a huge deal. It's the key metric that shows their relentless drive to become hyper-efficient.
So, how are they doing it? Well, it's a mix of things. Going digital, closing physical branches, and, no surprise here, using AI to make their operations leaner and meaner. And it's working. They've already slashed their costs from around 60% down to 52% in just the last 5 years.
Now let's switch gears completely and talk about cement. This chart lays it all out.
It shows the CO2 emissions for different European cement makers. The companies way over on the left, they're the most efficient. The ones on the right, not so much. And with tough new climate policies on the horizon, those companies on the right are about to face a major financial headache.
And here's why. The EU is getting serious. It's cutting back on free carbon allowances and adding a new carbon tax on imports. All of that translates directly into higher costs. The report figures that by 2026, CO2 costs alone could jack up cement prices by about €3 per ton.
Okay, so we've looked at AI adoption, we've looked at intensifying competition from China, and we've looked at how old industries are being forced to change. So what does all this add up to for Europe's path forward?
And that brings us right back to this central quote from the report. If there's one thing to take away, it's this. Europe's future is not going to be some simple, clean headline. It's a complex mosaic of really specific company-by-company challenges and unique opportunities.
So, to sum it all up, the outlook for 2026 is really this dynamic clash of three powerful forces. You've got Europe's strategic shift towards becoming a massive AI adopter, you've got the ever-increasing competition and policy moves from China, and you've got the rapid, forced evolution of its most traditional industries. And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. As all these forces collide, which one will end up being the most powerful? Will it be the tech revolution of AI, the geopolitical pressure from China, or the regulatory push from green policies? The answer to that is what will truly define the continent for years to come.